Alright, so first section was the corner plane. Obviously, the biggest thing is, or one of the bigger things is quadrant 1 is up here in the top right hand corner, and then 2 is which way? Left. To the left, and then around, right? And when I write that down as an answer, I have to write it as what? A Roman numeral. What's a Roman numeral for 4? IV, right? One less than 5. Okay? In something like number 2, what are we going to do for the quadrant?
The axis.
The axis, or you can say none, right? Okay? And again, remember, we go left and right first, and then up and down, right? The first number is to the left or right. Any questions with those? Distance formula, everybody remember the distance formula?
Yep.
The square root, don't forget to take the square root of it. Difference of the x's squared plus the difference of the y squared. Does it really matter if I do the x's or y's first? Not really, because I'm adding them together in the middle, right? Does it really matter which one I subtract? Do I have to go in the same order? Again, not really, because I'm squaring it. Okay? And this would be one time that it's definitely acceptable to punch it into your calculator and get a decimal, because it makes more sense if I say go 6.7 miles instead of the square root of 32 miles. If you're going to leave it as a square root or a radical, make sure then you simplify your radical if you can. Anybody need to see that? So again, if you want to see any of these on the board, we can go through. Midpoint formula was what? Average of the x's, comma, average of the y's, and then my answer is written as a point. Okay, so don't forget that you got to write it as a point. If it's an acute angle, my angle is what? Less than 90 degrees, and if it's an obtuse angle, greater than 90 but less than 180. Write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive of the conditional. The very first thing that you have to make sure of is that you read the question and answer the initial question. So the first one says if two lines intersect and form 90-degree angles, then the lines are perpendicular. True or false? True. If you do it in this specific order, if the original conditional is true, which one also has to be true? The last one, the contrapositive, right? The first and the last one, and then the two middle ones go together. Okay? So what did we do for the converse? Switch them around. When we say switch them around, we're talking about the if and the then, right? A hypothesis and conclusion. The inverse?
Use not.
You use not on both of them, but you got to go back to the original. And then the contrapositive?
Both.
Both, the combination of the two, right? I flip-flop them, I do the switcheroo, and I use not. Now again, you don't have to use not, you just have to make it opposite of what it said.
Wait, so do you put not on the first and the second part, or just
Yes,
the
ma'am.
first part?
Both parts. So you would have said, if two lines do not intersect and form 90-degree angles, then the lines are not perpendicular. Okay? And then again, you got to answer true or false. And if it's false, I need a what? Counterexample, right? Counterexample just simply means how I can make it true. If it's true, I don't have to do anything. Okay with that, or do you need to go through them?
We're good.
Okay? Again, there should be answers up there that you can compare to. 9 through 14 is basically the same thing. We're talking about those sets of angle pairs that we talked about. We had alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive interior, and corresponding. Ladies and gentlemen, there are never consecutive exterior angles and there are never corresponding interior angles. Okay? You've seen the combinations of them all. And then don't forget, you can always use vertical angles and a linear pair. Okay, but not necessarily would either of those be the result of a transversal. Okay, so, and then in something like number 11, angle 7 and angle 13, they don't have a direct relationship, because if you're going to make a direct relationship between those angles, they have to both touch the transversal. The transversal's gotta go through the two pods, kinda. So, any questions with 9 through 14? Holy cow, we're gonna get a A+ on this, huh? The slope, how do I find the slope from any 2 points?
The difference of the y's over the difference of the
And this one I have to make sure of what?
The y's and the x's of one point are aligned.
Exactly right, on top of each other, right? And then what is true about parallel slopes?
that they are actually horizontal.
What?
What is true about parallel slopes? The exact same slope. I don't know about the horizontal thing.
She was so confident.
What about perpendicular slopes?
They're the
Opposite. Reciprocal.
What does it mean by the opposite?
opposite.
Change the sign, and what's it mean by the reciprocal? I flip the fraction over, okay? Does anybody need to see that one? 16 and 17, all three of the angles of a triangle will always add up to 180 degrees. So hopefully 16 and 17 are easy. 18, several ways to do number 18, right? How can I do number 18?
Subtract 69 from 180, and then whatever the answer is, equal that for stuff that equals 4.
Perfect. Perfect. And then make sure you answer the question for what is being asked. Right? This one says find the value of x.
Don't those two equal that one?
I can also do that too. I can do 84 plus the blank one. So I'd have to find the blank angle.
Could you just do 4x plus 3 plus 69 equals 180?
Yes, that's what Addie said.
Oh,
Essentially, that's what Addie said. Addie subtracted 180 from, or 69 from 180 and said it equal. Same difference. Okay? Everybody else okay with that? 4x plus 3 to 84, and the blank angle was the exterior angle theorem, right? 19 and 20, how do I determine triangles are congruent? There's 4 different ways. What are the 4?
Side angle,
That they have
Side, angle, side.
angle, side, angle,
Angle, side, angle.
Side.
Side, side, side.
angle,
Angle, side, right? Okay, so in number 19, what would we have said? Side, angle, side, right? I think it was Ryan yesterday or somebody said, well, what happens when I do angle, angle, side? How can I do angle, angle, side if I skip a side? That's okay. You're just reading what you have in order. So sometimes you might skip some things, but you're just gonna read it in order, okay? Questions on there? Those. Our proof, pretty reasonable proof, right? A couple different ways I could have done this one. I could have done alternate interior angles, both sets of alternate interior angles, or I could have done vertical angles. Remember, anytime that they tell me that lines are parallel, alternate interior angles should jump into my mind. Okay, vertical angles would be at the middle. Do I want to say angle N is congruent to angle N for vertical angles in this one? No, make sure you use 3 letters. Okay, and do I know that do I know that N is a midpoint?
No.
Not necessarily, right? You could probably come to the conclusion that it is the midpoint of LP, but I don't know anything about MO. And then your last step in this proof would have been using CPCTC. Right? Everybody agree with that? So up here, this could have changed. Instead of saying angle, side, angle, you could have done angle, angle, side, right? If you did both alternate interior angles, okay? All right with that? Everybody understand when you have to use CPCTC? It can only be used after you use one of those 4 things that we said. Angle, side, angle, or whatever. Number 22, what kind of triangle do I got? An isosceles triangle. So not only are the sides congruent, but what else? The angles opposite of those sides are also congruent, even though that doesn't really help us in this one. 23 obviously isn't there. 24 through 26 should be things that we are pretty fresh in your mind because this is pretty recent. The most important thing is that you say where it starts from and then have your figure drawn correctly if you're going to use a figure. So meaning putting your slashes or your right angle sign or your box. So number 24, a median has to start where? At an angle. And it goes to the opposite sides midpoint or halfway point, right? And then you can put your slashes down. An altitude has to start from the angle. And it goes to the opposite side and forms a 90-degree angle. This is one of those on the test. Yeah, I think so. If you look back on your test, these two right here, I circled yours because some of you automatically put a box on there all the time. Or some of you automatically put that it's split it in half, meaning that you should add slashes. An altitude does not have to split the other side in half. Okay, it only has to make a 90-degree angle. And then when I ask you to name it, make sure you do, or you name it the proper way. Meaning that if the special segment that we're drawing has one of the letters that are involved in the triangle, then you gotta make sure that you write it that way. You cannot have 2-point Ks in the same triangle. Okay, bless you. Some people had that on the quiz for the test. An angle bisector just simply does what?
It cuts an angle exactly in half.
Cuts it exactly in half. Does it do anything to the side opposite of that angle?
No.
Absolutely not. What's my fourth segment that is not on here?
Perpendicular bisector.
And that has to do what?
Make a right angle.
It's going to cut it in half first and then make a right angle. Does it have to start at an angle? Could it?
Yeah.
Very special cases, right? Special meaning it's a isosceles triangle maybe, or definitely an equilateral triangle. Okay? 27, list the sides in order from least to greatest. How do we do this one? Set them to equal to 180 and find out the sizes of my angles, right? The sides opposite of my angles basically correspond to each other. Remember, they're not the same measurement. They just go together. So the biggest one goes across from the biggest one and so on and so forth. We can't even really tell without doing the problem in this one. 28 through 30, you can cross them out. That is next chapter. We did not get there this year. And so then we have our fill in the blanks. Perpendicular lines form what? How many right angles? 4. Because they're lines, right? So they have to go through each other. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. The sum of the angles of a linear pair is 180 degrees. Another name for angles that make up a linear pair are supplementary. Are all linear pairs supplementary, or all supplementary angles linear pairs?
All linear pairs are supplementary.
All linear pairs are supplementary, right? The supplementary could be on that board and on that board. They add up to 180 degrees, but they definitely don't make a straight line. Okay? Adjacent angles are next to each other. Next to each other. An obtuse triangle has one angle that is greater than 90 degrees. 90 degrees. Right, try to argue in this next one. In a right triangle, the two angles that are not the right angle have measures of
45.
no,
Less than 90.
less than 90. Or you could say a sum of 90 degrees. But they're not always 45 degrees.
Don't they have to?
Can't I have 30 and 60?
How would that be
Because 30 plus 60 is 90. Can I have 88 degrees and 2?
That's what I was trying to say yesterday. Like how? Like, cause then it wouldn't like form a
just did it. You said all those are 45, so why can't I write random angles?
You don't, just move on.
Somebody want to interpret her?
Emerson, you're wrong.
No.
45, if it's an isosceles triangle.
No,
That's when it's 45.
No.
Yesterday, but he told me I was wrong.
No,
I said the
no.
same
He
thing.
said something else.
I said the exact same thing.
The right happens with angles.
The three angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. If none of the sides of a triangle are congruent, the triangle is called a
Scaling.
2 sides are equal,
Isosceles.
3 sides
Equilateral.
equilateral, right? Question.
Do we not actually know anything about like the centroid?
Did we go over it?
Easy test.
I'm not gonna lie to you, it could look a lot like this.
Exactly.
I'm
It's
sure
just gonna be a
most-
different version of the same question.
There is gonna be a lot more.
Like, it says 2 plus 3 times 4 plus 1.
Did they shut off, Lens?